in ethical decisions making. Okay, so here we need to know the words normative. Okay, so what is normative approach? Normative approach is how the organizational decisions makers should approach an issue. Okay, keywords here. Let me highlight. Sorry. Transition. Okay. Okay. And for the descriptive approach, okay, the keyword is how. How, okay, how. So difference from a descriptive approach, okay, descriptive approach is assuming how the organizational decisions makers they approach the ethical decisions making. Okay. A normative approach in the business ethic revolves around the standard of behaviors within the firm as well as within the industry. And these normative rules and also the standards are based on individual morals value, okay, as well as the collective value of the organizations. So the concept like the fairness and justice are highly important in a normative structures. Because for the strong normative structures, right, for the strong normative structures in the organizations, they are positively related to the ethical decisions making. And most organizations, they develop a set of the core value, okay, to provide endurance belief about the appropriate products. So the core values are the centers to an organization and it's provide the directions for actions. And for most of the firms, the selections of the core value is relates directly to stakeholder measurements of the relationship. Okay, where indeed all of this value is include an understandings of the descriptive approach. Okay, it also include the instrumental elements that justify the adoptions of the core values in where it's focused on the positive outcomes, including the firm's profitabilities, okay, and also the benefits to the societies, okay. The institutions, okay, are important in establishing the foundations of the normative value. Organizations that face certain normative pressure from different institutions to act a certain way. Okay, they face the pressures either from internals and also from externals. Okay, so the short institutions we share is into three categories: the politicals, the economics, and also the social. Political influence it can take place within the organizations. If you ever heard about the office politics, okay, office politics, and then an ethical organization has policies and also rules in place to determine about appropriate behavior. So that's why in every organizations we have our regulations, we have our SOP, we have the rule. Okay, whenever if you're working at companies, okay, once you receive the offer letters, okay, you will be given the employee handbook. In the employee handbooks, okay, there's a lot of rules and policies of the organization. So these rules and policies, it will guide you, okay, it will help you to determine, okay, what are the appropriate behaviors, okay, and if you fail to abide by this rule, okay, the disciplinary actions, okay, will be taken. Okay, for example, of the disciplinary actions, maybe you'll be given a warning or deductions in the salary, okay, or the worst come to the worst, okay, terminations of the employees, okay, all of these are the disciplinary actions, or transfer to the other departments. Okay. And then for the competitions also affects how a company operates, okay, as well as the risk the employees take for the goods of the firms. So the competitions Among the competitions in an industry, it can be determined or described according to the barriers to entry into the industry. Okay, some of the industry they have very high barrier to entry. Some of the industry has very low barrier to entry. Example of the industry that has high barrier to entry is the industry that has monopoly. Okay, that has monopoly firms, so they have a very high barrier to entry. In where it's not easy or it's almost impossible for us to enter the industry. And for the industry that have very low barrier to entry is the kind of the industry that everyone's can join the industry. Okay, for examples, the food and beverage industry. If you wish to sell the foods, anytime as long as you have the capitals, you can start the business. Okay, it's very low barrier to industry. And they are very representative for the product they produced by the industrial rivers, the powers of the industrial rivers over the customers, and also the power of the industrial rivers supplier over the industrial rivers. Okay, all of these are the factors. Then industry. Okay, industry it shapes the values that promotes the organizations effectiveness. Okay, when we link to the goals. So it can also hinder the effectiveness. Okay, it's more efficient means of the organizations and also structures are avoided in exchange for the stability. Okay, risk that organizations might sacrifice new idea or methodology in order to be more acceptable. Okay, for example, some of the businesses, although they have a very good idea, a very good innovations, but sometimes these kinds of idea are not acceptable. Okay, not acceptable in the communities. Okay, in the by the public. Okay, so here the innovativeness okay will be limited here. Okay? It can limit the innovativeness and also the productivities of the organizations. And it's very important that organizations does not stray too far from industry norms and value. Okay, for example, if you ever heard the car that can fly, okay, the car that can fly. So these kinds of product, okay, although it's we can consider it as the innovative, okay, is something new, a car that can fly, okay. But sometimes this new idea, okay, a lot of people they criticize this idea, okay, and a lot of people say it's very impossible, okay, impossible for a car that can fly. So sometimes some of the ideas are not acceptable by the people. Okay, it can limit the innovativeness and also the productivities. Okay. So when values from politicals, economics, and social institutions okay, are embedded into the organization's culture, okay, to provide incentive for appropriate behaviors, the firms tends to act more socially responsible. And let's say if the incentive it do not aligns with the institution's normative value or if they contradict this value, then misconduct is likely, okay, is likely to happen. Implementing principles and core value in ethical decisions making, okay, so genre John Rawls was one of the most influential philosophers in his research, okay, on how the principle supports the concept of the justice. In well, this John Rawls, he believed that the justice principle would believe that everyone could accept, okay, in well, it's a key element in our definitions of principles. According to our definitions, the principles are believed that are universal in nature, right? So, for instance, most cultures that agree that honesty and also the fairness are essentials to a well-functioning society. Okay, although there may be difference on how to implement this principle in daily living. So in his experiments, this general, he used what he called it as the veil of ignorance, okay, veil of ignorance, a third experiment that examines how the individual will formulate the principle if they did not know what their future positions in society will be. So a person might emerge from the veil of ignorance as a rich person or as a bigger, okay, while individuals might formulate different values based on their position in society. John Rawls, he believed that because principles were universally accepted, both the rich persons and the bigger will agree upon that. Thus, by using the veil of ignorance, okay, John Rawls identified the principles that were not biased by one social positions. So he develops two main principles of justice, the liberty principles and also the difference principle. The liberty principles, okay, in other words, we call it as the equality principle. Equality principle. In what it states that each person has basis rights that are compatible to the basis liberties of others. Okay? For the difference principles as that economies and also the social equality or inequalities, it should be arranged to provide the most benefit to the least advantageous members of society. So it does not advocate, okay, for the complete eliminations of the inequality in the society, okay, but that the most ethical decisions is seek to benefit and not harms the disadvantaged population. Okay. So if in the corporate world, the organizations they're operating according to the different principle, they will not take actions that could create the economies and also the social harms to the least advantaged members of the society. Okay, for example, a firms they might avoid accepting business from a foreign country with a records of the human rights abuse, okay, because the country they support the exploitations of the disadvantaged groups. So both of this general justice principle is related to the politicals, it relates to the economies and also the social institutions. So for the companies take the basis principles and they can translate them into the core values. And the core values is provide the abstract ideas that are distinct from individual values and daily operations procedures. Okay? And value practice evolve and are translated into normative definitions and ethicals of unethicals. The value practice it can become end results, okay, and are distinct from the organization's practice in where it can be driven by the technical or efficiency considerations. For the individual and organization's value, it can differ, okay, significantly. Why? Because of the ethical diversity amongst the individual. So to join an organization, members need to accept that some values are superior and deal with the organization's needs to develop the collective agreements. Okay, so this results in possible tensions that must be worked out between the individual and also the organization's values. So leaders, stakeholders, and the organization's cultures impacts impacts the development of the core value. Okay, a firm's core values provide a blueprints into the firm purpose as well as how it's viewed at ethical decisions making and prioritize the stakeholder. Organizations core value organizations again that have the ethics programs based on the value orientations, they are found to make greater contributions than those based simply on the compliance. So this is the principles and values, okay, the differences between the principles and value. So in these figures, okay, in these figures, for example, the principles are widely accepted, okay, are widely accepted and used to develop the values and standards, establish pervasive boundary for the behaviors and value across the cultures. In contrast, for the values are very subjective and it's related to choice. Okay, we use the values to develop the norms, and this value also provide the guidance to the organizations, and it's also differ across the culture and firm. Example of the principles. For example, we will obey all relevant law in the countries in which we do business. We will practice transparency in all of our communications. We will work to ensure the right of all our stakeholders. And for the value, example, we will offer the best quality product in the industry. We will encourage the teamwork and collaborative to come up with best solutions. We will establish the trustworthy relationship with the stakeholder. And this table 5.2, this table 5.2, it shows the is provide an examples of the core value of Marriott's Internationals. Okay, so this is how the Marriott organize its core values, provide us snapshots of what the firms consider important. Okay, for examples, they put the people first. Then only they pursue the excellence. Then they embrace the chance, act with integrity, and lastly they serve the worst. Okay, this is how they arrange it. Okay, from this means they put the people first. People is their priority. Okay, people is their priority. So all these five of Marriott's value reinforce its visions. Okay, the visions to be the first hospitality company in the world. So these organizations' core value, okay, are very essential to the ethical decisions making in their organizations. The next one is understanding ethical decisions making. So ethical issue intensities, individual factors, organizational factors, again, opportunities. All of these four factors is result in the business ethic evaluations and also the decisions. Okay, for example, the organization's ethical culture. This shaped by effective leaderships. Okay, for example, it's need the support from the top level. Okay, top levels means that the ones that have high authority. Okay, example, general managers, the CEO, the board of directors. Okay, without the top level support for the ethical behavior, the opportunity for the employee to engage in their own personal approach to ethical decisions making will evolve. Okay, we know that every individual, we have different definitions on the principles, okay, on the value, okay. So without all of these supports, okay, we will use our own personal approach, okay, to make the decisions, okay, about the ethical or unethical. And then unethical corporate cultures is also need shades the values and also proper oversight, okay, to monitor the complex ethical decisions being made by the employee. Even it requires the establishment of the strong ethic program to educate and develop the compliance policies. Because the more you know about the ethical decisions making, the more likely you'll be to make good decisions. That's why every employees, okay, they need to be aware about the decisions making, about the ethical or unethical behavior in the organizations. They need to have this awareness because once they have the awareness, they have the knowledge, right? So if they know more about all of these things, okay, so the more likely they will make good decisions. So end of chapter 5. The end of chapter 5. Do you have any questions for chapter 5? No, okay. So now is 2:20. Okay, class. Our next class is Friday, right? But Friday is Chinese New Year, right? So our next class will be next week. Okay. So I think that's all for today's, and I would like to wish you all Happy New Year. Okay, Happy New Year, everyone. And I will see you again next week. Next week we will do the tutorial for chapter 5. Okay, our next class is next week. So this Friday, no class. Okay, no class because this Friday is public holiday. Okay, Chinese New Year. So happy Chinese New Year, everyone. So that's all for today, and thank you for your participation, attendance, everyone presents today. Okay, good, everyone. So that's all for today. Thank you, everyone.